Hello there and welcome to part 2 of the Autopsy Electric Boogaloo. So as in the previous one, there's certain assumptions that are made that you are familiar with Necromunda and whatnot. You will get the most out of this video if you have access to the Bastions of Law book and or the core rulebook or something similar like Necro Raw. I won't go into too much detail with various moving parts of this because this would make about a 4-hour long video, but we'll try and cover all the kind of salient points. So without further ado, the Sanctioner Automata, potato patata, 10 points if you get the reference. Anyway, the Lawbot, outstanding looking miniature, love it, big chunky boy, chonka boy. Make this your distraction Carnifex, and if you're not familiar with 40k kind of terminology, a distraction Carnifex is a visually large miniature that takes up space and looks imposing, that will draw your opponent to be like, oh no, that's a large thing, I should be distracted by this, and will cause them to manoeuvre their gang in a certain way to kind of deal with it. So bear that in mind when you build and eventually play this, which I recommend you do. It is good fun, it's got lots of extra parts like the grenade launchers and stuff like that you can really go to town on. But back to the subject matter. This guy comes with the Palanite skill, got your 6 baked in, which is great when you combine it with the concussion cannon with seismic. It's just stopping bad guys in their tracks. This is also a very resilient piece in at toughness 5 and 3 wounds a pop. Its armour save, it depends on whether or not you're going to take light or heavy carapace, but for talking sake, if you take the light carapace, it's going to be 4+. You can make this very, very, very resilient to getting shot when you start layering in things and working on, like I suggested from part 1, the synergy aspect of Palanite Enforcers. When you start synergising this with other bits and pieces, for example, a sergeant with an assault shield and the shield companion trait, and then you pop a Bonecrusher behind this, you're effectively making this a 2+ save, which means that you can get shot with las cannons and multi-metas and still have a chance. But we won't go into the kind of tactical layer aspect of this in this video. It's so many moving parts, and as I said, it would take up a whole lot of time that my valued viewers might not necessarily have. So we'll move on to considerations with the Ambot. First point of consideration being that it's not actually an Ambot, and maybe I should in fact start scripting and doing these in more than one take, largely speaking. However, first thing to bear in mind with your Lawbot is it will get pinned just like anything else in the game. If an Escher Juve shoots it with a lasgun or a Dalak Juve uses angry words, it will still get pinned the same as anything else. Mitigating factor for this is the ARS, the Automated Repair System. I'm not going to repeat what's written on the screen, but it will lend a lot of resilience to what is going to get shot because it's going to be treated as a distraction Carnifex. People are just automatically going to want to shoot this. Savvy players out there will ignore it, but that means that you are controlling where they position their gang, and you've got another kind of moral victory over its intended purpose. Also bear in mind where you position this. If you have fighters behind it, they're going to get -2 to hit if they are seen as being in partial cover, using this big dude as cover, which plays into the synergy aspect of how Enforcer gangs should be made. So if you are ploughing the credits into this, make sure that you've considered it in terms of the whole gang overall, as I would suggest with anything else, but particularly for the credits cost of this. When you armour it up and when you give it good weapons for its role, you're going to start really chipping into the credit budget. Another consideration is in terms of armour, but I would preface this with consider when you are looking to recruit the Lawbot. Armour wise, it's coming with either the light or heavy carapace, so a 4+ always, or a 4+, 3+ in the front arc at the cost of 1 movement on the charge and -1 initiative. The initiative, not a great big deal, and the -1 on a charge can be mitigated with different weapon choices. So if you're going with that heavier carapace, consider different weapon choices, i.e. the one with versatile, which I think off the top of my head is the Sledgehammer Assault Ram. So when you're buying this will largely dictate what kind of armour you're going to take. If you're buying this early on, if you're buying it at the start of a campaign, I think you'll do just fine with light carapace, because most gangs aren't going to have much that can really smash this to bits coupled with the ARS. However, if you're buying it midway in downtime and you are surrounded by Vansar players who have been purchasing every las gun and, well, every las cannon that's ever been manufactured on Necromunda, probably just get the heavy carapace. I think it's like 20 credits extra, and in theory by the midpoint you should have a couple of credits saved up. This is also available to use with the optional rules from Apocrypha Escape from Zalctra, which is Alcatraz, and Zalctra is hard to say, but it's legally slightly different from Alcatraz. Anyway, so the Apocrypha Escape from Zalctra you can still download from the community website. Run it by your arbitrator if you want to use it in a campaign or not. It has its benefits, it has its drawbacks. Everything that it limits, it boosts the effectiveness of it. So that'll be a whole other video to go into on its own. So I would suggest you pause here, you go download that, and then you come back, because I'm going to reference it over the course of this and the Cyber Mastiffs to whom it applies. Also bear in mind that the loadout for this, whatever it is you have purchased, that's it. That's all you're getting. You can't upgrade it after that. So if you went with double concussion cannons, that's it. You're not changing it. If you went with the sort of standard loadout for the grenade launching system, that's it. That's all you're getting. However, that's not to say that your arbitrator might think it's only fair that at downtime Goliath can do gene smithing, so why can't you purchase extra grenades or perhaps get a different loadout? Run that by your arbitrator and see what they think. Certainly for some campaigns that I've been involved in, that would be the way to go, but it's really up to arbitrator discretion and playgroup discretion. As with most things Enforcer in this new book, they come in 3 flavours of, as I see it, disruption, detention or destruction. And whatever it is that your gang leans into, the 2 options are either don't back down, double down. So if you have a destruction-based gang, lean into destruction with this guy, or the kind of synergistic approaches, which is the one I prefer, to be honest. So if the rest of your gang is to do with disruption-style play, then maybe manoeuvre this guy more into a detention role, which is my preferred Lawbot build. But anyway, we'll briefly go over them. So I've also noted the protocols for consideration, that if you are using them, then these are probably the loadouts and roles that fit these protocols. Your results may vary. Feel free to debate in the comments if I've got anything wrong, or if you are like super, why have you used that protocol, what's wrong with you, stop breathing out your mouth, let me know. But a brief overview of the builds that I suggest for disruption are smoke grenades and or choke and scare grenades. It's really up to you. Your mileage may vary. Take into consideration, as with all things, how this synergizes with the rest of your gang. Concussion cannon and either of the melee weapons is perfectly fine. You're just using this to smash out seismic effectively. And remember, they got your 6. So got your 6 coupled with a weapon with the seismic trait means that you're going to make the most of got your 6. So bear that in mind. You could also go double concussion cannon if you hate your friends. But just because you get 2 of a weapon doesn't mean that you're firing each of them. So it's, yeah, bear it in mind. Detention wise, this is my preferred build for these guys, because I want it to be a distraction piece. I want it to get up the field, I want it to be a problem, and I want it to effectively be a Necron of reanimation doom and stand back up every time you shoot it while giving cover to my guys. I like the loadout of the Sanctioner pattern Mancatcher, which is just a great big Weber. It's also a good enough close combat weapon, but we're coupling this up with the heavy shock baton for extra close combat punch. Protocol wise, if I was using protocols for this, I would be leaning into the hunt protocol. But again, your results may vary. Feel free to tell me I'm miles off in the comments below. Destruction wise, now as I've said, just because you get 2 of a weapon doesn't mean you're going to get to fire both of the weapons. So I would be inclined to go with 1 assault ram and 1 concussion cannon. This is expensive. This is 345 credits with no further upgrades. So bear that in mind. If you are using this as a midpoint purchase, you are going to need to save a lot of credits and kind of build your gang around credit generation to facilitate this. All of these options, so all disruption, detention and destruction gameplay styles, can be run as is, effectively, with a base level ambot, lawbot. So you don't necessarily need to spend the credits, but if you really want to lean into one of those playstyles and make the most, then you are going to need to buy extra stuff. So bear that in mind as to what your overall game plan is. But with that being said, we will move on to the resident spoopy boys. Why should House Delac have all the fun? I hear you cry and laugh along in agreement. Palanite Enforcer Haunts are the resident spoopy boy cycles of the Palanite Enforcers. Weirdly enough, they take up a hanger-on slot, which means they're rep-based, so the more rep you have, the more of these guys you can take. But because they're a hanger-on, they will not gain experience or advancements. So keep a note of that, because on first reading, it's very easy to be like, oh, cool, I'll get this Psyker, and then I'll get them an advancement, and then I'll go down this psychic tree from wherever, Book of the Outcast. No, you won't. No, sorry, hate to break it to you. No, you won't. You're going to be locked into whatever their specific power tree is, just because of how they are, because they are a hanger-on. So at the time of this video coming out, it's only the 2 disciplines, effectively, one for the Psyrender and one for the Bonecrusher. That's not to say at the point that you, the lovely viewer, is continuing to keep this video going and feeding the algorithm. Remember, like and subscribe and share and all that good stuff, but mostly subscribe. So that's not to say that when you come round to viewing this video, there isn't Apocryphas or FAQs or erratas or whatever has come out to allow these guys further access. So bear that in mind when you are planning, if you are planning to purchase and run these guys as part of your gang. They are also part of the crew, which means that you don't need to worry about them not showing up. So the 85 credits that you spend, they're going to show up. Don't worry about it. They're sanctioned as well, which is giving you access to one of the rare rerolls in Necromunda, meaning that you can reroll a failed willpower test once per battle, not per round, as I myself have made a mistake on doing, and made a very, 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 very cheesy Delac guy, but we won't go into that. Mistakes were made. Here we are. So it's once per battle. I've more underlined it and made it bold for my benefit. As part of psychic shenanigans, you will potentially encounter perils of the warp. Don't worry about it for these guys. They will just go out cold. So go crazy. Throw as many dice as you want. If your guy goes down, he's just going out cold. It'll be fine. He'll be back again next time. They also have fearsome baked in, which gives them some resilience against the charge. And the 2 flavours being the Bonecrusher and Psyrender. I think community-wise, right now as it stands, everybody is mad keen for the Psyrender. It's a very disruption-based option. But I think a lot of people are sleeping on the abilities for synergy from the Bonecrusher, and if you're going to buy 2, you can do some really stupid things with this, and by stupid I mean fun. But bear that in mind, depending on your playstyle and whatever else, but we'll get into each in turn, first off being the Psyrender. Psyrender, to my mind, is the nicer of the 2 miniatures. Just aesthetically I find it more pleasing. The other guy, well, I think is arguably equal, if not situationally better. The Bonecrusher has a weird koala head that someone said, and I can't unsee it now, even in the image there. Tell me that's not a koala or a boombox. Best of luck. Anyway, back to the Psyrender. This can be a very feels bad piece if you use it, quote unquote, maximally. If you're in that kind of cutthroat underworld, cool, go for it, double down, get 2. If you're kind of playing a skirmish game and you would like to play your opponent again, I would recommend not spamming hallucinations every turn, but it is probably their strongest power. So hallucinations is 12-inch, does not need line of sight. Thanks whoever wrote this. Doesn't need line of sight. the enemy fighter will immediately become insane. So just pick a guy in 12 inch. They're insane now. Best of luck to your opponent. If you've got two of these guys, you're doing this twice a turn if you're playing Cutthroat Amunda. I also like the mind control. I think that's quite a fun, kind of more interactive, other than your guy's now insane. So you're picking a guy within 9 inch and line of sight. So that enemy fighter immediately makes a shoot action, but the target for that is chosen by the controlling player. So if you have a Bansar, Las Cannon lover, I know I keep going on about Bansar and Las Cannons. Nothing bad's happened to me with them recently, but I'm very aware of how ridiculous they can be with Las Cannons. So you could, in theory, have Las Cannon champ shoot leader in the back of the skull with a Las Cannon. There is no debuffs, there is no minus, there's nothing like that. It's just they will shoot at their normal ballistic skill with everything else included. An odd thing as well with the Psyrender, and I think this is just effectively an editing mistake, really. They come with Fearful Aura, which is just doubling up on the Fearsome skill. It could be the intent that they want the Psyrender to be absolutely abhorrent in terms of trying to charge it, and that you would have to roll twice, but that doesn't make sense rule-wise, and that if you failed the first charge action due to the Fearful Aura, it would negate the Fearful skill because you wouldn't be able to do another charge action. So I think what this is just effectively a fluff text thing that they've done. So I think that the Fearsome rule applies to the Bonecrusher, and they wrote the Bonecrusher first, and they just forgot to remove that text for the Psyrender when they wrote the Fearful Aura thing, to kind of keep them both fearsome, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Hopefully I haven't just babbled you to death. But yes, certainly my house rule is that this does not stack. This isn't an official Games Workshop decree. Check with your arbitrator, as in all things. If you're playing skirmish games, check with your opponent or suggest what it is you think. I would say on the side of more kind of good sportsmanship, for want of a better term. It doesn't stack. It also doesn't functionally work in the game as a double stack thing. But yeah, keep that in mind. This hasn't been errated as yet. Now, the Bonecrusher. This is a prime synergy piece. Prime synergy. It can also push into the kind of destruction play side, but your Bonecrusher is a buffing unit. So think of the 85 credits as buying a bunch of Under Armour armoured undersuits for some stuff that might not necessarily have access to it. So with that being said, let's look at Force Field. So this is giving you a 3-inch radius, effectively a 6-inch bubble, that's going to improve the armour save of all fighters, friendly fighters under this, by 1. Yeah. Can we take a moment to appreciate how this will stack with a Shield Companion and a Lawbot? Yeah. Nice. And if you've got two of these guys, it's going to double stack by pushing it up +2. So if you do ridiculous things like 2 Bonecrushers, a Lawbot, and a Shield Companion champion with relative equipment and heavy carapace, off the top of my head, I think it works out as your Lawbot would then have like a -2 save, which is silly and impossible, but see, when you're getting shot by AP3 weapons, it's meaning that you're effectively going to be on a 2+ save. That's me just being dramatic, it's not specifically, so please don't jump in the comments and be like, oh, you don't even Necromunda, bro. Sometimes I forget stuff. But yeah, that's my point, is if you are in a very weapon-focused campaign, this is the guy that you buy. Likewise, I would suggest that if you have a low model count, Force, which we'll go on to touch on later on, I think this is the guy you buy to keep stuff alive. It keeps things on the table a bit longer. Yes, they're still going to get pinned, and yes, if you clump things together, they're going to get taken out by templates and flamer templates and blast markers and all that kind of stuff. But if you carefully position and use this as the synergy piece, which I think this is more intended for, you will get a lot of return on your 85 credit investment. It does have Fists of Fury. Cool. This would be good if it didn't have weapon skill 5 and like 1 attack, and if you're getting charged by something that's managed to outrun your fearsome ability, you're probably not going to make it. But at least you'll have Fists of Fury, so that's cool. It also comes with Crush, which I think can be situationally useful. I don't think this is an automatic write-off. The part that I enjoy about the Crush power is that if you hit a fighter with it, they make a save roll. Okay, that's it. So you hit them with it, they're not going to have to make a wound roll or anything like that. So you hit them with it, the fighter would then make a save roll. If the roll is successful, they will roll an injury dice. Read that again. If the roll is successful, roll an injury dice. So the more robustly armoured an opponent is, the better this is for you. This is why I think a lot of people sleep in the Bonecrusher. I think they see it as a very, not as immediately disruptive piece as the Psyrender. But when you start to take a bit of time and you look at it a bit longer and how it overlaps with other things, I think the Bonecrusher is the equal, if not generally better choice of the two haunts. Let me know below, and to keep me on track, make sure you like and subscribe so we can argue about it further. And now on to your favourite, my favourite, everybody's favourite. Everybody loves a dog, particularly a hardcase cyber dog. This comes with Tenacious, so if it hasn't activated yet and it's taken out of action, you still get to activate, which is nice, but it does mean that you are leaving this activation until kind of later on, which might derail some of your game plans. So just keep that in mind. And if you've used it to do something and get interrupted, you don't have the ready marker anymore, so it's not going to come into effect. So it's very situational, but it's very, very useful. The hard case is granting you a 4+ armor save. It's effectively like Carapace all round. Good times, making it nice and resilient. Movement 5, so it's going to keep up with everything. Toughness 4 base, but because of the hard case against gas weapons, it's going to be treated as toughness 6, so it counts as having a respirator. Now the fun part, which is why I think you take these guys, the Faithful Protector rule is basically a free 6-inch counter charge. So if your handler gets charged, so say you've got this on a leader who gets charged by a grumpy corpse grinder and your Mastiff is within 6 inch, they can make a free 6-inch move into base to base contact, helping you disrupt getting chopped to bits, because there might be an extra body there now, so it might be 2-on-1, all that good stuff. Make sure you have a look at the Minerva Prefecture skills and plan accordingly. Again, you need to make sure everything's synergistic with your overall game plan. That's not to say that Minerva is the only place where Cyber Mastiffs will work. Cyber Mastiffs will work pretty much anywhere if you figure them out right. It's just that the skills that Minerva have work really well with all exotic beasts. So again, not to say that it's just Cyber Mastiffs, but Cyber Mastiffs are the house pet, so that's kind of the one that you'll default to. These are also covered with the Apocrypha protocols. The ones that I think make the most sense are Intimidate, Capture and Rescue protocol. Have a look at them. I think they're all very situational. Again, as with most things, Necromunda and brutes or pets or hanger-on stuff, it's all very situational. But I think if you take these into account, you can let these guys run basically on autopilot. I like Rescue Protocol just because of how it ties in with other things like the Minerva Prefecture. They are only armed with a shock bite, and these traits for the weapon kind of outrule each other if you think about it. So shock on 6s to hit is going to be an auto wound, which is then going to negate the rending, which would be 6s to wound, give it extra damage, so it'd be damage 2. But rending is nice for when you just roll a normal non-shock hit roll and you roll a 6 to wound, you will get that extra damage. So it's complementary, but also kind of crosses over and negates each other to a certain extent. We'll come back to Cyber Mastiffs when we discuss one of the gang builds later on. But for now, we will move on to the gang-specific vehicle and crew, which is the Tauros, Venator and Ranger respectively. Ranger comes in at ballistic skill 4 and average mental stats, but weirdly has access to the savant skill tree. So this is another avenue for credit generation if you so wish, which can then allow you to buy, say, another brute and more cars and all that good stuff. The main thing for me is it comes with dedicated gunner, the same as the Orlock quad does, which means that you can move and shoot, meaning you're allowed to move your full 7-inch movement instead of the usual half distance and shoot. The only weapon I recommend that you take with this is a twin-linked concussion cannon, because if you are playing a vehicle-based game, chances are you're on the ash wastes, and the long-range modifier counts for all of the weapons, and I think the other one's like a heavy stubber, which is -1 at long range, so don't take that, just take the concussion cannon. Yes, it is expensive at 145 credits, but I would argue it's the most versatile in terms of what it can take on, particularly with how concussion and seismic interact when you're targeting vehicles. Just hitting an enemy vehicle is going to force a loss of control test at -2, which can be great on certain vehicles. For example, if we just look at the Tauros Venator below, the handling for that is 5+ without any modifications or upgrades or skills or whatever. So if you're hitting that, just hitting it with a twin-link concussion carbine, that 5+ suddenly becomes a 7+, bit harder to roll. So that's how we take out vehicles, is forcing loss of control checks, handling checks. You're not going to kill a vehicle by shooting at it and chipping off hull points. If you do, great, but the most effective way I've found to take them down is by forcing loss of control tests. And if you're hitting it with multiple concussion things, it's a good time. It's a good time. Force as many loss of control tests as you can. And against gangers, you're going to automatically pin them with seismic, which is great. Pinning is winning. And if you're pinning people with a blast template, you're potentially pinning a group of them, which means that you are chopping activations down for your opponent. But yeah, this is the only loadout that I can see as the one that you take, without going into the various body and drive upgrades and whatnot. The twin-link concussion cannon is the way to go with this guy. Alliance-wise, what is recorded in the Bastions of Law book is the Imperial House Alliance. I think it was in one of the Vaults of Temenos, Aranthian Succession kind of books as well, but it's now been reprinted in this one. That's not to say that Palanite Enforcers are the only people that can take this, so bear that in mind. If you play another gang and you've just came here for companions, cool, this is the thing for you. Think of these guys as a durability boost, as ablative wounds with the potential to melt things very nearby. I'm quite excited about the Disintegration Gun, and I love the model. I love it. Love it. So, forgive my excitement. I genuinely enjoy this miniature. I don't know if it's the Roman aesthetic or if it's the overcoat, but there's something about it that I'm like, give me 10, let me convert all of them. Yeah, I just like it. These guys come baked in with Overwatch and Fearsome. I'm not going to bore you to death reading out what's on the screen. I'm sure you'll be able to read that there, and you can cross-check it with Necro Raw or the rulebook. The interesting parts for the companions are this Helmor's Protectors. So, like I said, they are a bodyguard. They're ablative wounds. You allocate these to one fighter in your gang, and they will look after them effectively. They can still go on about their way and not have to be within like 3 inches of them. They're not like a pet or anything, but it does behoove you to keep them close, and that they have the peerless bodyguard rule, meaning that the fighter that they look after, so say you've got this allocated to your leader, the leader can then transfer hits from any weapon and all of the effects to a companion within 2 inches. So say you're hit by a toxin weapon with some nasty Escher chems, you go, I'd love to be hit by that, but this guy breathed it all in like a maniac. He just ripped off his respirator and started gulping it down like an absolute champion, and now he's dead. But thanks, guy. So bear that in mind for who it is you're playing. Again, I know I keep going back to it, but Vansar with a las cannon, they're going to want to target your leader just out of badness, because Vansar players are bad people. Connor, I'm looking at you. But yeah, so the peerless bodyguards thing is good. It will keep your whoever it is you've got them allocated to alive longer. If you wanted to be a maniac, you could allocate them to a haunt or a lawbot, if you so wish. But the fun part for me with the companions is the Disintegration Gun. So let me start by saying, don't be afraid of scarce, because Unstable will take care of that problem should it so arise. The best part about this is Rapid Fire 1 and Sever. Strength 5, -3, 2 damage a pop. The ammo is 6+, so you wouldn't be able to reload it anyway. Let's be honest. Looking through the traits, Scarce 1 being that if it's out of ammo, it can't be reloaded for the rest of the game. The 6+ ammo check takes care of that. Anyway, however, Unstable, if the ammo symbol is rolled on a firepower dice, you need to roll a 3+, or your fighter goes out of action. Yeah, that's good fun. It's good fun. I think there is a thematic balancing mechanic for the -3 strength 5 2 damage thing that you are potentially hitting a person with 3 times, causing potentially 6 damage, all of which at -3. Yeah, I like it. I like the models. I like the rules. Your results may vary. Let me know in the comments if you're going to take these guys, if you can even buy them, who you're going to allocate them to. Are you sticking them on a lawbot? Are you giving them to haunts? Are you just being a maniac and running them up the table and shooting at whatever you can in the hope that you don't explode? Let me know. Also, one for the arbitrators is your players, given that this is a nice gun, might ask, should members of this delegation or any other delegation or whatever alliance be killed and removed, do I then get their equipment in my stash? Now, I don't think there is a points cost for a Disintegration Gun, so that's up to you to decide if you so wish, if they're able to sell it, or if it's just a case of, no, it goes back to the Imperial House, how dare you ask such a silly thing, or if it's a case of, yep, it lives in your stash, you can't sell it, but you can give it to someone else. It's worth clarifying before you go into campaigns, because someone will likely ask about, can I give that Disintegration Gun to a Juve? Well, I think that's hilarious. It may not be the way for things to go. So check with your arbitrator, and if you are an arbitrator, post below and let me know what your kind of thoughts on this are, or if there's any precedent out there, because I would like this channel to become a hub of, yeah, we do fun things, but here's also the most accurate, up-to-date information we can, and share it as far and wide as possible. So now that we've covered all of the brutes, hangers-on, vehicles, crew, exotic beasts, etc., we'll have a look at some starter-themed lists, and we'll go through each one by one. They are by no means super-duper, min-max, ultra-competitive, but they are kind of fluffy as to what they are. The first of our gang lists, this I have named a balanced starter list. It comes in at exactly 1,000 credits and has a gang size of 9, so we're very near the holy grail of hitting 10 gangers at creation, but 9 will have to do, and it's more than 8, which is more than 7. So, brief overview. Leader coming in at 195 credits, all the stats as they are above. Skill I have chosen is Got Your 6, mostly for that disruptive countercharge effect, and to make the most of that, I've went with a concussion carbine. Keeping them cheap, keeping them cheerful, but the concussion carbine has seismic, which means that anything you hit will be pinned, which means you're making the most of Got Your 6. To complement the gang overall, the very first champion I have is the Palanite Sergeant Champion. He's coming in at 125 credits, equipped as he is. So I've chosen the sniper rifle here and trying to make the most out of it with marksman as the shooting skill, meaning that I don't need to be a slave to target priority, which feels a bit better for a sniper. The second champion, it's rare that I double up on champions, but for a balanced build I think this is kind of the way to go. This is a Subjugator champion equipped with Shock Baton and Vigilance Pattern Assault Shield to make the most out of the Shield Companion skill. He's coming in at 180 credits and he's going to be used as a linchpin to provide extra cover and armour and support to people round about as part of group activations, bearing in mind that he has group activation 1. Further into the gang, we start coming into our regular gangers, first one being a Subjugator Specialist at 145 credits. He's coming just with Shock Baton and Shield. Next ganger is a Palanite Specialist at 85 credits. The reason there is two specialists is because they are two different kinds of ganger, one being Subjugator and one being Palanite. The Palanite Specialist comes with the Concussion Carbine, again leaning very much into the theme of disruption play, using the concussion and seismic traits to keep people on the ground to allow subjugators to move in to bash them effectively. This is also further assisted by our Juves. Juve 1, keeping them cheap and cheerful, coming in at 40 credits with Photon Flash Grenades, the Flash trait being very powerful here in synergy with all the concussion. And Juve number 2, again at 40 credits, coming in with more Flash Grenades. If you're familiar from the first part of the Autopsy, you will know these guys as Yeet Shields. They are just there to throw things, probably miss when they throw them, hence the 5-inch blast template to take care of that, and then get shot at through target priority. So, bringing up a bit of firepower in the rear. You'll see that these guys don't have armour, but these are Palanite regular gangers, 95 credits each, both with the Enforcer bolt gun. They're just there to hold people down, provide a bit of backbone fire support. If anyone survives from whatever credit generation we have, generally flak armour will go around. The idea is to use these two patrolmen as a fire team, these two Juves as complementary assistants for either your specialist ganger or alongside the Subjugator Specialist and the Subjugator Champion. Keeping Champion 1 with the sniper rifle in the backfield, picking off priority targets, and leading from the front with your leader. I say from the front, as far to the front as you can get with an 18-inch blast template, making the most of counter charges using Got Your 6 to interrupt those charges that are inevitably going to be facing your Subjugator Champion. Theory being that he will pin whatever's getting charged at him. The Subjugator Champion can then go in and bash it to death. So, that is our balanced starter list, coming in at exactly 1,000 credits, a gang size of 9, rep 1, using the Palanite Prefetcher. If there's anything you would do different, let me know below. Gang number 2 is Go-Go Robo-Dogo, or Go-Go Gadget Robots, Dogs. Dogbots? Anyway, so again, this gang comes in at 1,000 credits on the nose. It does have a gang size of 9, but you need to remember that 2 of those are robot dogs. So effectively, you're running a gang of 7. This falls also into the Minerva Prefetcher, just to have access to kind of more specific beast-related things. Our leader comes in at a mighty 295 credits. And comes with the skill Iron Will. Reason being that your gang will be 7 people and bottle tests are a thing. So Iron Will should hopefully keep you on the field a bit longer. I try and aim for about 8 plus as a minimum activation wise per starter gang, and I think that's where people should land. However, if your crew size is 7, most scenarios you will be taking your entire crew. Anyway, I digress. As we can see, this leader is very, very basically equipped and comes with the Cyber Mastiff, who is, as we've outlined previously. Our second actual person in the gang is our Palanite Sergeant Champion, coming with a Concussion Carbine, making use of the Seismic and Blast template, as we always do, and he comes with Beast Mastery to allow kind of a bit more flexibility with his Mastiff, who comes as all Mastiffs do. Moving further down into the gang, we're kind of limited points wise because we're going into the dog theme. So our first patrolman is a Juve equipped with a shotgun, just as effective as anybody else with a shotgun. So here he is at 85 credits. This has given us crowd control with the shredder rounds and the template. Juve number 2 is a Yeet Shield, just coming with flash grenades. His job is to go forward, flash something and probably die. And then we have our ganger with the Enforcer bolt gun. He's coming in at 95 credits. Nothing special about the guy, but is a good solid base of fire, and as long as you're moving him along with people, you'll get that +1 to accuracy in the short range. Our Specialist Patrolman, he is again coming with a Concussion Carbine with a Seismic trait. It's cheap, it's cheerful, it's 75 credits on the nose, and it will have a good disruptive effect against whatever you happen to be facing. I've also went with a second champion. Again, this is rare for me, but this is a Palanite champion, making use of the sniper rifle and the marksman skill alongside the riot shield and flak armor. So he will effectively be backfield, providing downrange cover, taking out priority targets and being very hard to shift. So champion number 2 is our backfield. Our specialist with the concussion carbine and the ganger with the bolt gun will be forming that kind of mid-range fire team. The Juves will be performing a more front range role, close range role with the flash grenades and the shotgun. They will be led with the Mastiff and the champion, who will also be alongside a Mastiff and a leader. This is quite an aggressive gang to play. Everything is relatively short range other than the bolt rifle, so your maximum range in this gang is 24. This gang will live and die in the 9 to 18 inch range between the concussion carbines and blast templates. With this gang, it is really about get up into your opponent's face early, make sure you are dishing out concussion and seismic, and then making the use of your hardcase mastiffs to be effectively what your subjugators are. In the more balanced gang, your mastiffs are going to take up the role of I'm in front of you, so you have to shoot me, and being a combat threat. Hopefully that makes sense, and we'll move on to gang number 3. Gang number 3 for when you absolutely need the Sanctioner. Yeah, if you want to start with a Sanctioner, this is how I would go about it. Again, we are starting at 1,000 credits, absolutely on the nose, like a champion. Gang size of 8, and with the Palanite prefetcher. Our first chonky boy is the Subjugator Lawbot, coming in at 305 credits. As we can see, I've went with the Subjugator pattern Mancatcher and the grenade launcher and heavy shock baton. This again comes with got your 6, all the good stuff, ARS, mobile bulwark. I went with light carapace armour because if you are using this as a starter gang, you're unlikely to face things with super duper ultra high AP, and I think light carapace is more than enough for the majority of the campaign. Moving on to our leader, coming in at 210 points, plasma pistol, shock baton, so he's got a bit of a punch but not a really massive threat on his own. The key purpose of this guy is the use of the Iron Will skill, because we have a mighty 8 gang size. This will help keep people on the field a bit longer when people start dropping and everything else. First champion, again, he's went with the got your 6 skill to prevent counter charges, and went with the concussion carbine with the seismic trait, because as I keep harping on about, seismic is fantastic with got your 6 and will add a bit of survivability to your very small gang overall. The majority is made up of Juves, coming in with flash grenades and 40 credits. This guy is the bare minimum yeet shield, and Juve number 2 at 95 credits. This one has flak armor because he is going to get up close and probably going to get shot. Giving him the Enforcer shotgun because, as I keep saying, he's just as accurate as everybody else. If you're desperate on shotguns, give it to a Juve. Next up is Specialist, again with concussion carbine, with seismic and blast. He comes with flak armor as well, a bit more survivability, and totaling 85 credits. And our first quote-unquote real ganger has the Enforcer bolt gun, Palanite Patrolman, 105 credits. He's got flak armor as well because of the kind of the narrow parameters that this gang can actually function in. Anything that is likely to attract fire will probably attract fire. Juve number 3 has photon flash grenades, 40 credits, bare naked. So our Juves with flash grenades become mini fire teams alongside either the leader or the specialist or the champion. Use the brute as its intended purpose, distraction carnifex, and filter people through the terrain towards your champion with a concussion carbine, provoking a charge with Juves in front, so that you can make the use of got your 6 and the seismic trait. This is quite a one-trick gang. It basically works off concussion and flash. The Juve with the shotgun is there for crowd control, and again to try and bait people to come and get him. The Ganger Specialist with the concussion carbine is playing on the theme of this gang, hitting out with the concussion and seismic. So it's a very, very linear gang. It's quite easy as a setup, but I think it will present quite significant difficulties if you're not used to playing with enforcers, because it really, really leans into the we're not playing like any other gang kind of vibe, if that makes sense. Just because of how this gang works, you're not really killing people. This is very much more a disruptive gang. Think the lack in terms of how this will play. It's not like Goliath fighting everything and shooting stuff to bits and cheering about steroid abuse. It's not Orlok with their kind of ultramarine feeling, can do a bit of everything. It's far from Cawdor in that you have a gang size of 8. So bear that in mind. I would say this is one of the more difficult starter gangs that you could do. But if you absolutely want a Sanctioner pattern Automata, you can do it in a starter gang. But I would suggest that you go and have a look at the other ones. If this is your first time playing Necromunda, this is like a medium hard difficulty gang, I would say, to start with. So psychically reinforced Subjugator only patrol coming in at 975 credits, a gang size of 7, and with the Palanite Prefecture. This gang is quite straightforward in terms of what it's made up of, but in terms of how you play it, it has room for error, but not much. So our leader, 200 credits, he is coming in with the heavy concussion ram. Bit of a change from how I normally load out a leader, but this will make sense when we see how small the gang is at 7 credits. 7 gangers, sorry. Skills here is Iron Will, as is now becoming tradition. If you have a smaller, more elite gang size and you have access to leadership skills, I would always say take Iron Will. I know we're forgoing the Savant skill tree for this, but let's stay on the board first before we start worrying about credit generation and everything else. Moving on to our champion, who is a Subjugator champion with the Power Maul and the Vigilance pattern Assault Shield. He is a shield companion from the Palanite Prefecture Discipline, coming in at 180 credits, so he'll be able to dish out his armour bonus effectively with the shield companion skills for the likes of our Subjugator Specialist at 145 credits, who comes with another heavy concussion cannon. These are good weapons, particularly if you start getting into that shorter range, which you are going to want to do with this gang, because it's a fighty gang, it's not a shooty gang. Our next Subjugator, these are all Subjugators, our next Subjugator is 125 credits. He doesn't have the shield, but he does have flash grenades, power maul and stub gun. So on the charge he'll have 2 attacks base, 1 for charging in, making it 3, and 1 for a melee and sidearm. So you'll have 4 attacks on the charge, which is nice. All of them will hit at strength 5 and -1. You'll be hitting most things to death in theory. Our next one is another Subjugator ganger. Same loadout, 105 credits, power maul, stub gun, flash grenades, and the other one is exactly the same at 135 credits. I think the only difference being is he has layered flak armour. Other than that, the same throughout. Our psychic reinforcement element comes in the form of a Bonecrusher here because of the skill for the force field, basically making everything a bit tougher. Because you have a small elite gang and you've got the shield companion skill, you can really layer that up, and you do want to be close in. So let's go through this in terms of fire teams. We'll have a Bonecrusher and one of the Subjugators without the shield, so they'll have the photon flash. You could take both if you really want, and I would move them alongside the champion. So it'd be Bonecrusher, champion, and guy with flash grenades. There would be a second group that would be leader, specialist, and other Subjugator with flash grenades. So we'll try and keep everything within that 6-inch bubble of the Bonecrusher, so that we're making the most of the armour saves that we have, while also making sure that we are pinning. So pinning is winning in Necromunda. Make sure that you're making the most of your concussion weaponry and the seismic trait. Then follow it up with close combat from our appropriately armed and trained and willing subjugators who will be hitting things at strength 5. So keep that in mind. Your weapon skills 4, pretty average, but your strength 5, meaning you will be wounding Goliaths on a 3, which is nice. And if you're fighting Goliaths who have only taken the furnace plate, it's a 5 up save I think, you'll be rendering them to a 6 up save, which is good. So this is the more fighty option. There is room for error, but not much. In terms of customising this, you could swap out the Bonecrusher for the Psyrender. And if you're doing that, I know I say don't be that guy, but with a smaller gang, you are going to have to be that guy and start making people insane so that you have room to get people upfield. This is a gang that functions in the realistically the 15-inch range, so that we're making the most of the heavy concussion weaponry and then following it up with charges. This is a strike hard and fast gang. If you like group activations, this is the way to go. And then it also will layer in with tactics cards, which might have to cover in a whole other video if this one gets a good response. So that is where we're at with this gang. It's not forgiving, but it has enough wiggle room if you play it well. I would say this is for more experienced gamers, but also if you're just having a skirmish game, it's a good fun, relatively straightforward gang to go with. And there you have it, Hive Scum. Hopefully that's at least given you some food for thought, maybe sparked a couple of ideas. These videos for this autopsy of the Bastions of Law, I've made them in a way that I would like the information, and hopefully you do too. So the first video has a lot more, for want of a better word, depth than this one until the gang list. But that's just by the nature of brutes and hangers-on and things like that. They don't necessarily have tons of equipment options or anything like that. So hopefully you found the same value in this. And if you have, please do the like and subscribe thing. I'm on a mission for 1,000 subscribers just because that would make me feel nice in my old Necromunda man soul. I've also, with this video, I don't have the kind of wobbly guy filter thing that I use on. So Dr.Drybrush, my avatar here, is remaining static. Do you like this, or do you prefer mild motion sickness? I've also not put any background music in this, mostly because I'm closing in on deadline time, but also because background music can be distracting. Let me know what you prefer. Do you prefer background music or not? Do you like movement or not? Either way, do the like and subscribey thing, please, because that would be nice. Anything that I can do to help you guys get the most out of your hobby, please let me know, because the YouTube side of things is basically a side effect or a symptom of my Necromunda hobby. I just like to tell stories and help people do things that they would like to do. So if there is more that you think that I can do with the Palanite Enforcers, i.e. go into the tactics cards or set up scenarios and kind of walk through tactical gameplay side of things, or like what a first turn with certain builds could look like, let me know. I'm happy to do it. And if not, what would you like to see? Do you want to see another House of book autopsy? Would you like the autopsy of House Goliath or House Delac or anything in that field? Let me know. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it, but as ever, not everything is for everyone, and if you don't like it, that's okay too. And if you do, please make sure to like and subscribe and share with a friend. Anyway, until the next one, I have been Dr. Drybrush, your humble Underhive servant, and I will see you then.